Hopefully everyone can see my screens, and I guess we'll get started now. It's at 1 o'clock. Hopefully everyone's joined. So good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everyone is doing good, and thanks for joining the webinar. Today we'll be having a look at all things SuperStream. Fairly simple, but very important aspect of SMSFs and superannuation as a whole. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you guys will have a good understanding of what SuperStream is and how to use its features within SF360. Now, before we start, just a few housekeeping things to note. Everyone will be in a listen-only mode. However, if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A window to ask. Fair few team members here that will be able to answer everyone's questions. They'll reply to you guys whenever you guys have questions. And of course, I will also try to answer any questions while we are going through everything. The webinar will also be recorded and posted to the BGL YouTube channel, which if you guys haven't subscribed, subscribe. And also all the registered attendees will receive an email with the recording after we have wrapped up here. So in the case that you guys can't stay for the whole thing or miss anything we've covered today, you can always go back, watch it on our YouTube channel or via the link that you will receive to your email addresses. Just a quick overview of the education week. As you know, this is the education week and we are pretty much starting it off with SuperStream. We've had one other webinar before this. And yeah, this is basically the layout of the week for Simplify 360. Where the second one here is Mastering SuperStream. So if you guys have not registered for any of the following webinars, please do so through the link in the chat. And yeah, if you guys haven't registered, go ahead and do that. And similar to this one, all of these will be recorded and uploaded as well. So if you can't make it on the day or want to watch it back, you can do that as well. Moving on to the remainder of the education week for the other products that we have. So Simple Invest 360 will be covered from October 7th to October 11th. And then finally, CAS will be October 14th to October 18th. So using the link, you can also register for those ones. And yeah, should be moving on to the agenda. So this is what I would like to cover for this webinar. I'm going to start off with what is SuperStream. I'll probably just talk about what SuperStream is and what BGL supports in SF360. And then we're going to move on to the demo for the rest of the things. The demo is going to make up the vast majority of the webinar. Hopefully we can cover pretty much everything that SuperStream has to offer in SF360. And yeah, as I said before, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask and we'll answer as we go. So let's get started with what SuperStream is. It's basically just a government reform that is aimed at improving the efficiency for the overall superannuation system. SuperStream is an electronic method which must be used by all employers and super funds to send contribution data, rollover transactions, and release authority information. On the note of employers, they must send the data electronically through SuperStream infrastructure, which will then be collected by the gateway and distributed to the relevant SMSF. Now, the employers will be needing to use the correct ESA, which in the case of all BGL funds would be BGL SF 360. And I guess the same goes for rollovers and release authorities as well. They do go through the ATO validations to make sure that all the information that the sending party has put in is correct and matches the ATO database. Once that validation process has been completed, if successful, the request will be sent over to the relevant party. Or as I mentioned before, all the funds under BGL will be using the BGL SF 360 ESA, which pretty much supports everything that you'll need for SuperStream, which will be contribution data that employers will be sending through, having the ability to process rollovers in and out, and as well as receive release authorities from the ATO and action them as well. So that was pretty much just a brief overview of what SuperStream is and what we support in BGL and SF360. And yeah, now I think we just move on to the demo, and I'll cover a fair few things amongst contribution data, processing rollovers, as well as the registration process. All right. So firstly, I suppose you will log into SF360, and you'll likely see the home screen, which will list all of your funds here. In this case, we've set up 3, so we have Fund A and Fund B, which we'll be using to communicate and process rollover transactions between, and then Training Fund just for reference. Firstly, I'll go over the buttons and what the SuperStream dashboard can do and what everything basically does. And to get to the SuperStream dashboard, we're going to hover over Connect on the left here and go to SuperStream dashboard. Now, the first thing that you'll see is if there is a rollover or release authority that requires attention, there'll be a big warning sign just like this, and it will show you the funds that have outstanding rollovers or release authorities requiring your attention, and they'll show up under the Action Required tab here, similar to Fund A and B. One of the good things is that you're able to see exactly which member and the amount, the last date, what type of transaction is outstanding at the moment, as well as how long it's been outstanding for. This is quite handy just in case you need to follow up with the other fund, you know how long it has been outstanding for. Also, you can see the transaction status here, which will, I guess, just outline where the rollover is at in the process, the entire process. And you'll also see the external party. And you'll be able to do this for all of your funds that have an action required here. One more thing that you'll be able to see is if any of your funds have received a rollout or roll-in transaction error. And of course, the external party will be listed there as well. Now, currently we're looking at funds that require attention. If you wanted to view all of your funds, you'll click on the All Funds button here, which will list every single fund that you as a user have access to. Now, if you're an admin user or the account owner, most likely you will be able to see every single fund here. If you're not one of those roles and you've been assigned a different role, completely depends on what funds that you have been assigned or have permission to view, and this will be listed here. One of the nice things about this screen is the ability to filter things. So in a lot of situations, especially in firms that have a lot of funds that require attention, you may have set up labels for these funds. Perhaps you have certain employees that are looking after a few funds and want to group them together. So in this case, I've just grouped in some funds using some labels. So you can click on the label button here and select whatever label you've set up already. Once you select that, that fund specifically will show up in the All Fund screen. So you can filter by label here. You can show funds with multiple labels, and if nothing is here, it will show every single fund. Similarly, you can also filter funds based on whether they have been registered, not registered, registered, and then if there are any issues with registration or any other errors. Currently, there's nothing here. So we can have a look at 2 of our funds which are registered, the 1 fund which is not registered, and then all of the funds again. If you're looking for a fund specifically and you know the name of the fund, you can also search for the name, search that in. If you know the ABN, you can put the ABN in as well, and that will show that specific fund as well. One of the nice things is the ability to export all of the SuperStream related reports that you may need. The key things being the notification letters. So in the case that you have registered, you've acquired a new client, you've registered them for ESA, you're able to generate the notification letters. So if you click on that, it will automatically open the report screen with the relevant reports put into a pack for you, which then you can preview. And we can let that generate quickly and ignore that. And yeah, it will generate for you guys. And you can download this, fill anything out that you might require, and then send that to the relevant parties. Similarly, you can do that with the change of ESA as well. It's going to be the same thing. It will open the report screen and download the report for you. SuperStream summary report is going to just be an outline of this screen in an Excel document. So if you guys want that to keep for your records, you can also download that, and email notification report similar to the other ones it'll generate for you guys as well. One of the really important things that clients come to us about is notifications for rollovers and contribution data. In a lot of cases, this hasn't been set up at all or incorrectly. So, rollovers have been outstanding for a few days. The clients didn't know that they ever received one. And to avoid that, it is very highly recommended that everybody do set this up when registering. And of course, you can also do this after registering. So initially, you'll be able to do the firm level notification at any point, regardless of what fund you are currently logged into. You can just click the little arrow and click on firm notification. In this case, I've already set myself up as a recipient for the notifications. One thing to note, for rollover and release authority notifications, that will be able to be sent firm-wide. For contribution data, this will need to be turned on per fund. It's just a small thing to avoid receiving countless emails if you have a lot of funds. So if you want contribution data notifications, you will want to turn that on in the fund level notification, which we will get to in just a moment. If you want to add someone else, if you want multiple people to receive notifications, you can click on add new email recipient and search for their contact name and put in their email address. If the contact already has the email address put in the contact screen, then this will autofill. So actually I will remove myself here and we can add myself in again. So if we search for my name here, put that in, it will autofill the email address and it will show my name and email here, and that I do want to receive rollover release authority notifications. Hit save. This is going to cause another problem, so hit save. There we go. So that covers firm level notifications. Now, if you want to set up notifications on a fund level, you will need to select the fund using the checkboxes on the left. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so everyone can see. Just one more. Yep. You can do this for multiple funds as well. So in this case, let's do fund A and B. We're going to click the same little arrow here and then click on fund notification. Now, as you can see, we've already got some recipients set up here that will be receiving both contribution and rollover data. In the case that specifically you don't want to receive one of the notifications, so in this case, I don't want to receive contribution data notifications for fund A, I'll turn that off, but I do want to receive rollover data, I'll leave that on. Similar to the other one, you can select another recipient here. If you've set up the contacts and relationships already, it will autofill. So I'm the administrator, which when I select administrator in the dropdown, it will autofill my name and my email. If the person you are trying to add does not fit into any of these, you can always select other, search for a contact if you've got that set up, and then put in the email address and then hit save. That covers most things. I will go on to registration and then we'll look at some other things. We'll look at contributions in a second, and then the final thing will be processing rollovers, which will be the bulk of the webinar. So for registration, as you can see, I've already got 2 funds registered here. For the one fund that is not registered, you can select the checkbox. Now you can select up to 20 funds to register at the same time. So if you've taken over a lot of clients in one go, want to register all of them, you can, up to 20. You will select all of the boxes that require registration. So quick way to do that, you can click on not registered, hit the all, select all, and that will select everything on a page. The page allows for 20 as well. So if you have a full page of not registered, you can essentially register a full page of funds in one go. We're going to click on register, and this is another key thing. When you do register for a fund, you do have the ability to set up the notifications. So from the get-go, you're able to do this, which is highly recommended so you don't forget. As we went through before, you can always do it afterwards, but may as well set it up from the get-go. In this case, I am the administrator, so I will select the relationship as administrator, which will autofill my details here. I want to receive contribution and rollover release authority notifications. And if you want to add someone else, you can also do that. Once everyone's been added in, you will click validate, which will go through the validation process. If there are ever any errors, they will pop up here and it will give you a general description of what you need to look into. And once that is all done, you can hit register. I'm not going to do that here, but once everything is all good, if everything is past the validation, you can click register. All right, so that covers pretty much all of the buttons in the dashboard itself. Now, one thing to note is we've been looking at the global view of this screen, which essentially will show you your firm-wide funds, all of your funds that require action. As you notice, we are currently logged into Fund A here. So if we wanted to see the specifics of Fund A, for example, contribution data, or specifically Fund A rollovers, we'll click on Fund View in the top right here, which will toggle us over to the Fund View for Fund A. Now here, as you can see, we've set up some contributions. These basically you will receive from your employer, who will be sending them through SuperStream. They'll show up in this format on this screen. However, if you do want a report view of this, you can click on the SuperStream contribution report, which will automatically generate for you guys in PDF format, which then you can download as well. If you want to download the report, you can also do this from the report screen, where you can just search SuperStream contribution report and then generate it from there. One thing to note, this is quite simple, but essentially this will have an overview of the member, the date of the data, any reference that might have been sent, the name of the employer, in this case it's just BGL test, and then the pay period as well. The total amount figure will just be a total amount. If the breakdown has been split in any way, this will be split into its relevant columns. And if none of the amount applies to any of these columns, it will be under any other, which will also be reflected in the report. Now, one really important thing as well is you will not receive contribution data if the employer has not set up their information on their end. So one really important thing to do is when you do register for SuperStream, it is highly recommend that you do send the employer the notification letters, whether it's a change of ESA or a new ESA registration completely. This will give them the relevant information so that they can put it in on their end and start to send data. Really important thing is that the fund will not receive contribution data before the date it was registered. So if anything, if the employer was sending contribution data in the previous year or prior to the date of registration, it will not show up. However, anything going forward, once you have registered, as long as the employer's details are correct, should be coming through to us. In any case, you don't, you notice that data is not coming through, you've double checked with the employer that they have everything correct, please do reach out to our support team and we'll look into the matter more. But generally speaking, it is in the hands of the employer to make sure their information is correct. We're going to go to archived rollovers, which I believe I have some data for in Fund B. In the case that you have any rollovers here in the, I guess whether they're outstanding or, well, I suppose, yeah, outstanding, and you've perhaps made an error when you were processing the rollover and you want to do it again, you can click the 3 dots under the action tab and click on archive, which will then move it to the archive screen. As you can see, I've archived a bunch of transactions here. If in any case you want to restore any of these, you can click the three dots again and restore them, which will move them back over to the rollover screen. I guess we can get going with some rollover demonstrations. So we have Fund A and Fund B, which is what we'll be communicating between. As you can see, I have already processed some transactions, which have been processed here. Once the transaction status does show as processed here, it will appear in the transaction list as well for the relevant fund, which you can see I've already, well, we've prepared these transactions here. For clients that have bank data feeds, whenever the transaction hits the bank account and is brought in through the feed, the system will auto match the transactions together and it will no longer be unmatched here. For clients that don't have bank data feeds, you can manually code in another journal for the bank side of the transaction and then manually match the transactions using the checkbox or the blue tick here. Otherwise, quite simple way to do it is you can simply click into the journal and change this to a bank account, whatever might be correct, and then hit save, which will essentially match the journal together and you'll have a complete journal for your SuperStream rollover. Now, the journal also does include the payment reference number, which we'll get to in a moment, and the date of the roll-in or rollout, and also it attaches the document related to the rollover, which you can click on the little paperclip icon and have a look at the document, which will just contain the general details of the rollover. And then at the bottom, it will show you the transaction history and the date and time each, I guess, status was updated. So first we'll cover doing a rollover itself. So let's do a rollover from Fund B to Fund A. In this case, we're going to be the transferring fund. So you click request a rollover here and then select whether you're the transferring fund or the receiving fund. In this case, we're the transferring fund. And you're basically just going to go through this page and fill out all the details. So the top one, if the rollover is for a member, leave it as member, or if it's for a beneficiary, you can swap that over. Then you'll need to select what member the rollover is for. In this case, let's do one for Mary. This will autofill the details for that member that has been put in for their contact, so their TFN, date of birth, their gender, their dates and whatnot. Also, if they have multiple accounts, you'll be able to select the account here, as well as whatever balance is in the account itself. This you would want to double check, make sure everything is correct, and move on to the next bit. So in this case, we're going to do a rollover to another SMSF, in which case you can select yes here. If the rollover is for a retail fund or an industry fund, you will have a USI. You can put that in and the system will autofill the details based on the data the ATO has for them, which you would obviously want to double check just to make sure everything is correct and then carry forward on to the next step. So in this case, the receiving fund is Fund A. So I will grab Fund A's ABN, fill it in. The ESA, we're going to select from the drop down here as BGL. Fund name is Fund A. You will need to put in your client member ID, which I'm just going to put as 1 for now. Put in the BSB account number and the name. This will automatically fill out using the details of the transferring fund, which in this case is Fund B. So it's automatically filled this out. And then you can select whether the balance will be the entire balance or if you want to do a specific amount. If you check entire balance, the system will autofill whatever the balance is in that account that you've selected. Now, one thing to note, if you are using the entire balance or a vast majority of the balance, it is highly recommended that you do create entries till 1 day before. processing the rollover. This is just to make sure that the correct amount of profit and loss has been allocated to the account so that there are no issues such as negative member balances in the future. In this case, we're just going to be doing a partial amount. So I will put in $250. The system will fill out all of the components as they are for that member at the moment. If these are not correct, you're more than welcome to change the components in this screen itself, or you can cancel this, change the member components using the update member components feature, and then come back and the system will autofill this for you. If the rollover is a death benefit rollover, you can hit that checkbox there, and you'll need to fill out these details. In this case, it's not, so we're going to ignore that one and fill out the remainder. So I'm just going to put in my details here as the message sender contact details. And yeah, you're going to fill that out. Go to the top, make sure everything is correct here, and pretty much double check. And once you've double checked everything, you can hit save and submit, which will prompt you with the checklist. Another, I guess, way to check everything is correct, go through all of this, and you can check one by one. If you've done many of these and you're quite certain everything is correct, you can hit all, check all boxes, and then click confirm and submit, which will then submit the request. We're going to close out of that. Now, I've already done some requests previously, so we're going to go on to that. Usually it does take a few minutes, so it's not, okay, in this case, it's done it very quickly. In your case, it might take a couple of minutes to pop up in the screen, but nonetheless, it will show up here after a few minutes. And the other fund should also receive that request. Now, once you have processed the rollout, you will see the next step here, which is going to be rollout awaiting confirmation. And essentially what you'll need to do here is provide the client with the payment details for the receiving fund, and they will need to organize the transfer of the money from the bank account to the other fund. Now, one very important thing to note is the payment reference number, as you can see, which has been generated for all of the requests. When you do process a rollover, a unique number called payment reference number, or PRN for short, will be generated. And this is what the client must use when transferring the money to the other fund as a reference. So once the other fund has received a rollout transaction or roll-in transaction, they will need to match this payment reference number with the bank amount they've received to make sure that they're able to allocate the money to the correct SuperStream transaction. Now, the vast majority of rollout transaction errors that we see in the support team is due to clients not using this, or I suppose putting it in incorrectly. Sometimes clients go ahead and just transfer the money straight away without, conferring you guys, the accountant, on whether it's ready to be done. In which case, the likely result of that is the other fund rejecting the request as they're not able to match the funds received to any SuperStream transaction. Now, this might not seem like a big thing, but if you think about it, all of these big retail funds like AusSuper, for example, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of transactions happening at any given time. It is very difficult to allocate an amount to a SuperStream rollover, which is why this payment reference number is very important. So let's go over to Fund A, which we'll be having a look at. As you can see, we've received the rollover request from Fund B for the $250, which then we can action on our end here. So to do that, we'll click on the blue button which says roll in transaction received. One thing, very important thing to note, once you have received a request, please do not process the request, as it is not reversible until you have double checked everything on this screen. So make sure we're going through everything here. TFN, date of birth, the address, all of the other details here, and obviously the amount. You want to note down the payment reference number, check the bank account, see if the other side has sent the rollover with the correct PRN. And if all is good and it's been sent correctly, you can hit process. And once you do that, the next, I guess, step will be received by the other fund, which in this case will be Fund B. On your end, it will just show as roll-in transaction processed. Now, once it has been processed, the system will post the journal to the transaction list, which we can go have a look at. As I said before, it will take some time to post, which in this case, it has not done that yet. So another couple of minutes and it'll come through. I've already prepared the other ones, as I mentioned, so we can have a look at some of the other ones. So we have these amounts here. As I went through previously, for clients that have bank feeds, these will auto match. Otherwise, you can simply bin the bank account by yourself, save and prepare documents, and that will be all for that. One of the really important things as well that we see coming through on through support calls is, as we were talking about, the transaction errors. As you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see clearly here, but we'll zoom in a little bit. We have received a message saying the rollout, there was an error in the transaction. In the black box there, you can see the rollout transaction is rejected by the receiving fund, in brackets, the external party. So Fund A has decided to reject the rollover for whatever reason. Usually, people are quite good with putting in their reason for rejection, which when I was rejecting this, I did put in that the payment reference number cannot be reconciled to the payment, which is your generic error. And then I've just given a little bit more detail saying the PRN is incorrect. So what this says to the sending fund, in this case, Fund B, is that we have sent a request to Fund A. However, they have said that the PRN is incorrect. And they have decided to reject the rollover based on that. Now, what can we do to rectify this? You will firstly need to determine if the PRN was indeed incorrect by the client when they were sending the money. If it was, and Fund A has received the money, they will be able to either refund you the money, or you would need to get in touch with them to communicate how they want to go about I guess finishing this process. Generally speaking, they will reject. I can show you guys that as well. So if they did want to a refund, they'll put in the refund amount and then the refund PRN, and they'll send the money back to your client. After your client has received the money again, you can process the rollover again, and we're going to utilize the archive feature again here, which you can do by clicking the three dots, click on archive, and then go through the request a rollover, select your transferring fund again, do all the same steps we've been through, and make sure the client uses the correct PRN in this situation. We've been over rollout awaiting payment confirmation. We can go through a roll-in request transaction received. So in this case, Fund B is receiving a rollover. Similarly to Fund A, you would want to double check all of these details, make sure everything is correct, note down the PRN, and then hit process here, which will then post the transaction to the transaction list. In other cases, you can also receive a rollout request from another fund. So in this case, Fund A has sent us a request for us to roll out the money to them. So similarly, I'm going to go through all of the information. You're going to double check that the amount that they have requested is what is available in the member account to be rolled out. Double check the bank accounts, and then you can hit process for this as well, which will then open this screen, and the transaction status will be rollout request processing. You will come through and pretty much put in all the details as you had done previously as the transferring fund, fill everything out, and then hit save and submit, and that will process that rollover. We've been over this. Now, awaiting response is something that you'll see when you have sent out a request to the other fund, I suppose, and you're essentially just waiting for them to process. So as you can see, this is the $200. Fund A has sent to Fund B, asking them, can you roll out that amount to us, which we can see here. It's currently processing, but we haven't hit save and submit yet, so it's not sent it back to them. We can actually go ahead and do that here. I'm going to fill out these details again. And I'm going to assume that I've double checked everything. Transferring fund is Fund B. Receiving fund is Fund A. And we're going to save and submit. We're going to hit this, confirm and submit, and this will give us this screen here. This is the screen that will show up containing all the details that you would need to provide to the client. It will include your payment reference number, which you can also see over here. It will have the BSB and account number as well, and the figure that needs to be transferred. And you can, I guess, review this, download to PDF if you need to send it to the client, and copy it to clipboard as well. Otherwise, you can click close. Now, let's go back to Fund A and have a look at, we're still awaiting response here. So yeah, as I said, it does take a little while for that to be sent through the gateway and then come back to the relevant fund. And there we go. Not even a minute there. And as you can see, we've received the roll-in request. It's been confirmed by the other fund. We can click on it, make sure everything is correct, and then scroll down and hit process, which will then post the transaction in the transaction list, which, as you can see, the 250 we were dealing with earlier has been posted, and the PRN is here, as well as the document, which you can download at any time. That pretty much sums up everything I have for the demo side of things. I believe we have covered everything.